All right, welcome back. This is part 5. So this is the main display, and now that I have this out, I can actually show you what I meant by that hamburger analogy. So if you look here at the very top, you see how this piece of glass here kind of sticks out further than the rest? Let's see if I can focus on that. Okay. This part right here where the tip of my toothpick is, that's essentially your patty. And then just to the left of that, you can hear my nail. You see it's catching on something to the left of that. That would be one of the buns, or in this case, the polarized filter that we're going to be removing. And then on the other side is another part where my nail is catching here. And that, I'm not sure what that is, but that part we're not touching it at all. So when you're using your scalpel to cut in the previous video, essentially you want to cut just enough to get through this polarized filter without hitting the main patty or the display in the middle. You don't want to hit that middle part, and you certainly don't want to hit the back part. Okay, so to make things easier, because there's glue right now sticking this whole thing together, I put it inside of a bowl, and then I take this goof off, and then I just spray it, and then I just kind of spray it everywhere. So I spray the whole display in the front, I spray it on the side, and then I spray it on the back. And then I spray a little bit, and then just enough so that the display is being covered, and then we're going to let that sit for about 1 minute, so I'll check back with you. Alright, so that's been sitting for about 4 or 5 minutes now. I'm going to let it sit for a few more seconds. Couple tools here that you're going to need. You're going to need your pin and a guitar pick. Now the guitar pick is pretty thin enough, but what I went ahead and did was took a knife and actually made one of the edges of the pick even thinner. So right around here. And you're going to be using the pin initially to just create a small wedge between the polarized filter and the display. And then once you have enough of that filter exposed, you can use your guitar pick to kind of wedge all the way from the bottom here to where our score line is. Some people don't use the guitar pick. I've seen people even do this with a scalpel. Just remember that you're working with liquids. This thing is a little bit slippery. And so it just gives you peace of mind to know that if you use this, it's, number one, it's going to be safer for you. And number two, there's less chance of damaging the main display underneath by rubbing a piece of plastic versus rubbing something like metal with a hobby knife. Okay, so let's take this out. Okay, and I like to have a microfiber towel ready to go here. And we're just going to pat this down. Okay, and for this part, what you'll start with is we don't want to take anything off here. We're removing from the score line up, or the score line down. So we're going to take our pin. Okay, we're going to stick it right on top of the display, remember, right on top of the patty, but beneath the bun, beneath the polarized filter. So I'm going to put this in, and then I'm going to make sure that I've got fingers clear so I don't accidentally poke myself, and then you're just going to slowly push into the display. Let me see if I can zoom in more for you guys here. Okay, let's move this over. Alright, so I'm going to insert right here and push in. You can see how I'm already getting a small bubble here. So I'm going to keep pushing in a little bit, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction. At this point, I'm underneath the polarized filter, so I'm not worried about this pin coming up and hitting me in the finger. And then a little bit in that direction, and then a little bit in that direction. And that's pretty much all you really need to use the pin for, because at this point we can take this out and swap in our guitar pick. Okay, and then what you want to do is just loosen this slowly. Now you'll notice the display starts to look really dirty once you lift it up. And what's happening here is that glue is getting pushed and moved around by the guitar pick, and it's starting to clump together. So what that dirty stuff is the glue underneath. Okay, now we got a good rhythm going, and I'm just going to keep doing this till I get to that score line. Perfect. Okay, now that we've gotten to the score line, we can set that to the side. Let's grab our hobby knife again, and let's grab our towel in this case to protect the top. And we're going to need our straight edge again. And now we're going to cut again on that score line. Or actually, you know what? We don't even need the straight edge here. I forgot. You've already made a score line in the display. So now when I'm tracking this knife over it, I don't have to worry about the knife going too far to the left or to the right, because essentially there's already a crease that the hobby knife is going to follow. So I'm just going to put this here. And I'm going to follow that same crease that I've already had from the previous video. Now, one reason why I make the score line before all of this is that, you know, this display is still a little bit slippery, and it's just easier to work with a display that's dry and a little bit safer also. Okay, so it's about 6. I'm going to move it over. Find where it tracks, and then just pull down. I'm applying a little bit more pressure now than before. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, now what we can do is take our pin again, put it above the display but below the filter, and just kind of wedge it a little bit like that, okay, to create a gap. Take our guitar pick now, and we can try to remove just that portion. Okay, so that's okay. Let's go from this side here. Okay, at this point I'm going to use my fingers. And now what we're doing is peeling apart that polarized display underneath, or on top here. Okay, it's a little bit stuck in that corner. I'll grab my knife again. And there we go. We have a nice clean break of the polarized filter. So now if we look at this display, this part here has the polarized filter, this doesn't, and what you're seeing here is actually the main display covered with glue on top of it, which is why it looks kind of hazy. So what exactly did we just remove? So this is just for fun. This is a polarized filter, and I'm going to grab a different watch that I have here. This is an AE 1200 that already has the polarized filter removed. Because the polarized filter is removed, you don't see anything. You don't see the time. You don't see the clock. So what happens when we take this polarized filter and put it over it? The clock appears, right? And then if we rotate this filter 90 degrees, what happens? We've got a negative display. So that's essentially what we're doing, is on our project here, we've taken the filter off, we're grabbing a brand new filter, rotating it 90 degrees, putting it back down, and that's going to give the negative effect. Why don't we just use the same polarized filter we removed? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, it's really dirty. It's covered in glue. It's too dirty to see clearly. Number two, when I rotate this 90 degrees, I'm obviously going to have a little bit here that I can't cover, and it's going to look ugly if I cut it here and put that here. I want one nice piece, so that way you don't see any seams in between the display. Okay. So in the next video, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean up all this junk, all this glue that's on here. All right, so I'll see you in the next one.